Out of all the shows I could start watching again, because I don't really watch shows, I decided Euphoria. I don't know, there's something about the writing in that show where even though I know it's overly dramatized and just exaggerated to the point where there's no way that there's this many people that are all going down this type of path. I find it entertaining, and I do really like how they present certain things or certain themes within this show. Anyways, so I'm only going to be talking about a few certain things. Be cognizant. Welcome or welcome back to my channel. My name is Lauren. If you've never seen my face before, I'm your resident intuitive baddie. And today we're pretty much talking about, I would say, how to live in your feelings instead of overthinking certain things. So the reason why I bring up Euphoria, again, if you hate spoilers, skip ahead a little bit, check in the chapters to see where the next topic starts. But they're following Cassie and Nate's storyline within the first 3 episodes, by the way. It follows them kind of planning their wedding and just like certain issues that they have, because Cassie has this dream wedding that she's trying to execute. And man, was this a crazy conversation, because he was basically, one of the things that we're fighting about was spending $50,000 on flowers. His Nate's like, 2,000, okay, 5,000, fine, but 50,000, no. And what Cassie said, which is what was fucking wild, was, I didn't wait all this time to have a ghetto wedding. Y'all, $50,000 is a wedding in itself for a regular person. What the fuck? Anyways, so all that, and then, he makes it happen. And then the wedding itself doesn't end up being all that she made it to be, because it lacked the actual emotion behind it, because there was problems within their relationship that were being ignored or masked, or that she was overlooking, for the simple fact that she was so hyper focused on this dream wedding and executing it perfectly. And what this ties into the topic of is the fact that a lot of us do this thing where we put so much thought and emphasis on something that we're dreaming about that we actually take ourselves so much so out of the experience and into this mode of feeling that it has to be perfection, that when it actually happens, we're not really prepared for it, or we're not really seeing it through a realistic lens. So this can look 2 different ways. This could either be experienced as hyper over perfection, where you have set the expectations so high that anything that is not matching that expectation is a failure, which means the entire experience isn't appreciated the way it should be, just because it doesn't live up to the potential of what you were making it out to be. And then the other is the simple fact that something like that is just a milestone, and it's really a milestone that is a transition into you being a new person. And when you put so much into the milestone itself rather than what you're transitioning into, when you actually transition into that role, you might not even realize sorry, that it's not what you actually want. 1 second. I had recorded a video just before that, and as I was going on that run, I could feel my throat getting dry, but I was like, I want to get it out. But yeah, so let's move out of the wedding example and move into a different example. For example, like a job. You might be gunning for this promotion, and you think this promotion is going to put you on the map. It's going to give you the title that you've been this like title that is going to make you seen as an authority figure more, or it's going to give you the salary, the pay that you finally want, or that is going to allow you to live a certain type of life. But then you get into that role. Yes, you make the money, you have the title, but the role isn't actually worth it. Meaning you're getting a lot more work for than the pay is actually worth. Or you're in this leadership role, but maybe you now have the higher up people disrespecting you, or maybe even the people that you used to be on the same level with that are underneath you now don't respect you, or they're treating you with disdain because you're their higher up now. And maybe, I mean, that's more of an energetic thing, that like if the people who you used to work with or that used to be on the same level with you don't respect you when you move up, that has more to do with your frequency than anything. Then but it could also, but a lot of the times it does have to do with the fact that the power dynamic has changed. And I don't know, people, it's hard for people to see somebody who was on the same level as them move up and then have authority over them. And especially it's like if you're okay, now I'm especially okay, let me just wrap that up. Especially if it's one of those things where you're now condemning them for something you were doing a couple weeks ago, it's like, throws off the dynamic. But all that to say, it doesn't end up matching up to what you thought it would be. But you stick with it because you made such a big deal about it that now you feel like you have to commit to it. So it's the mix of what I want to talk about is that a lot of people commit to these things, and they commit to something that doesn't actually feel right to them because it was a part of the dream. And once they have the experience that probably didn't even match up to what they actually wanted, now they commit to it because they don't want to backpedal and look stupid. um and that is a question that I had to face for myself when I was looking at separating from my ex, because I definitely got caught in that trap when it came to the wedding specifically. I not actually not really the wedding, more so having a child, which was pretty much what I wanted it to be. And what like I do see having my daughter as changing my life in the way that I needed it to change, where I became a natural teacher and I got to nurture her and be the nurturer that I didn't get. However, I think I did rush when it came to my partner and having a wedding, because the way that I saw it in my mind was, well, if I'm going to have a child, then I want to do it the right way. I want to get married, and I want to have my dream wedding. I only want to do it once. When what I'm realizing now, and what gave me the contrast for this, was I had spoken to somebody last week, and she was describing her wedding. And basically, for her and her partner never really planned on getting married. They already had a child, but they kept traveling back and forth from the States, and they would get searched all the time, and they were wondering why they were getting searched. And basically, they were told that it was because they had a child with them and they're not married. So they were like, all right, we're going to just get married so that we stop getting searched. And it was literally a task on their list for the day amongst other tasks that they had to do. And when she was telling me this story, it's it's so funny because it was so simple. And she was telling me about how he was dressed up in casual wear, and then she actually was dressed up more formally because one of her tasks was she was on this talk show to talk about basically what she was doing for work and stuff. And they look mismatched, and they have these pictures of them looking mismatched, but 25 years later. And this is just a really funny story for them to tell, but they did it in the most simple way. It was just her mom and their child that witnessed, and they did it at like City Hall or something in the chapel there. I think that's what the story was that they didn't realize that they still had to do the chapel thing. They thought they were literally just going to sign it and that was it. But you still have to do the vows and all of that stuff, and like all of the stuff that you see usually in a church or however. Interesting. Um, but it was, yeah, it was a funny experience for them and something that was super memorable. Whereas I feel like a lot of people in my generation get married and they have these big elaborate weddings that have all these little details, and then years later it's like there's not much to talk about when it comes to reflecting on it, or it's just not reflected on that much. It's just a thing that happened, and then it just becomes about, well, what's the next thing? And I think a lot of us have this mentality where we don't we don't appreciate the journey so much so as what's coming up next, and having that thing that is next to be reported about. And yeah, this can be looked at in so many ways. I feel like even in when it comes to having a certain conversation, or if you even make it simpler and make it about like a guy wanting to, or I don't I don't want to think too hard about this, guys. Somebody asking somebody else out, um, then sometimes we can get so caught up in how we're thinking about it, and just like, projecting so far out into the future, or just like projecting a life with somebody when you don't even know if you're really going to like the person because you haven't experienced the person yet. It's like you haven't even worked up the courage to ask them out yet, but you're already thinking about whether you're going to have the blue or the green tie at your wedding. Like, that it's like that type of thinking, and it's just not helpful. It's not helpful to be so logical all the time. Like, yes, there is a time and place to be logical about these decisions, but what's missing from a lot of this is feeling and being a part of the journey, and understanding that the journey is what it's really about. And the milestone is just a marker and a celebration between parts of the journey. So I guess looking at, say, the dating example, or actually let's give another example. Say there's a conversation you've been meaning to have with somebody, a heavy conversation, and you're catastrophizing. Like, typically what we do is we catastrophize and we think about all the ways that it might go wrong, and we're trying to almost problem solve or compensate for anything that could go wrong before it goes wrong, thinking that it's going to be preparation for when things do go wrong. Which, if you're thinking about the law of mentalism and the law of correspondence, you're attracting that frequency for it to go wrong by believing it will. When, for the most part, it's like if you just approach it kind of chill, or just approach it without that attachment to the outcome, and just realizing that you're meeting a need that needs to be met by presenting the conversation at all. That when you kind of let go of the outcome and you just kind of see how it unfolds, because at the end of the day, it's never going to be exactly what you picture in your head. Whether it's that type of conversation, how the conversation will unfold, or whether it's something like a wedding where it's like you have a picture for how everything's going to go. There are always going to be parts of it that you can't control, and parts of it that are going to look a little different or very different from what you imagined. And I feel it's just that if more of us would accept that, we would get more out of life, because we would stop being so in our heads and so worried about what could happen and just be present for what does happen. And that's what I think a lot of us need more of. Shout out to water, for real. So the takeaway from this is, no matter what it is, if it's a milestone or a job milestone, a conflict, starting a relationship, focus more on who do you want to be when you get that thing, or who is the person that getting that thing requires. What are you shifting into? What is the feeling you want out of that experience? Because at the end of the day, how it's executed, or not executed, how it unfolds is secondary to that experience of, or the actual experience, or the experience of who you become after the fact. So again, with the wedding, it's not to say that people shouldn't have big weddings, but a quote from Myron Golden is coming in. That one video taught me so much, and I pulled from that video so much. But it's that video. Oh my goodness, I'm just gonna drink in front of you guys. It's a video where he talks about how we should get rich before we act rich, and he mentions weddings specifically, where he says that most people invest more into the wedding than they do into the actual marriage. So yeah, when you're getting married, yes, have a big wedding and do all the details if that is what you want to do and you can afford to. But if you wouldn't marry that person without the theatrics, meaning if everybody canceled, everybody said, no, we are not coming to your wedding, or COVID number 2 happens and you're just not able to have that big wedding, it's like, would you still do it? Would you marry that person without any witnesses, aside from I think you need 2 to sign off on? So, without the necessary people, would you do it as a minimalist if that was the only way? For the job, it's like, if you weren't going to be recognized, I'm not going to say if you weren't going to get paid that same amount. Actually, you know what? To some level. Because it's like, I feel like when you really love a job, it's like you'd be willing to do it at any price point, but it's like you should absolutely do it at the price point that makes sense for you and is worth it to you. But you get the sentiment I'm talking about, where it's like, do you actually love the role that you'll be going into? When you look at that role, is it something that you actually want to do, or are you doing it for the status, or to be in a position of authority or control over everybody? Or is it just for the money, where it's like, are you happy making that amount of money if it costs you your sanity? I'd like to say, for a better, for lack of a better term, or all of your time, if out of that you get a little bit of vacation time, yes, but you don't really, like, you spend most of your time stressing out, or it's like, I'm trying to go through all the examples, or with the conflict, is it worth living in your head when things might actually just go smoothly and it might just go better than you expected? Or with a relationship, it's like, you can make somebody out to who they're going to be, or you could just get to know them and have fun with that, rather than to put up an expectation that they're not aware of and have them losing before they even have really gotten into the relationship. The whole point is that it's really about the experience of going through those things and just seeing what happens. And it's like, you can always use that information for next time. So that could look like, if the conflict does go bad, oh well, now you can kind of look at what went wrong and then maybe approach it differently the next time. If it's a relationship, then it's like, okay, well, this person wasn't the one. At least I tried, at least I know. If it's a job, then it's like, okay, this job kind of sucks. Maybe I want to do something else. And it's okay to switch lanes. That's another thing. It's always okay to change your mind. Or with the wedding, it's like, okay, well, I didn't get all the things that I want, but I could always do a renewal, and maybe the renewal will be better. Yeah, like, honestly, specifically for the wedding thing, if I were to do it again, I would not mind having a small wedding. I wouldn't even mind just doing the court thing for at first, and then doing a renewal 10 years later, 10, 15 years later. Because for one, it's like, at least that big party is like definitely going to be celebrated with people who have been there for you throughout the marriage, and it's less about impressing people, and I feel like it's just less pressure. But it is what it is. I'm glad I had my experience, and my wedding was a beautiful wedding. But yeah, it's just like, everything is a learning experience. And when you kind of take things as they are and you're able to be more present for the experience itself, or just being more cognizant of what you're stepping into and how you're going to feel during that experience, then it's just better. You just live life more consciously, and you get more out of the experience, because when you're so much in your head, you're filling your experience with projections of things that don't exist and probably never will. And then when you look back and you're trying to look at your memories, you start to see that you don't have that many, because you spent so much time living in your head. I think I've done a pretty good job of being as present as possible, even though I've definitely had phases where I did that. I did all of those things basically, except maybe the job thing. Yeah, I've never really taken a promotion or taken a role that I didn't enjoy, or that I over romanticized. But I've seen it around me, so that's why it was one of the examples. Um, but of course, I learned how to do that even better in this past year, and to really embrace the things that I wanted to embrace, and to eliminate all types of what ifs. Because, like, I don't want to get to the end of my life and wonder. So, yeah, that is the sentiment to you as well, is experience things, don't worry so much about them being perfect, or because there's no such thing as a perfect experience. There's always going to be anomalies. There's always going to be things on your journey that present a challenge and that are going to make your are going to make the end result look different from the vision. It's just about holding the vision loosely. I guess I'll end this off by presenting this kind of teaching from Buddhism, which they talk a lot about detachment. And I think a lot of people kind of mix this up with dissociation, where they feel like, oh, detaching means you don't care, where it's not. It's just that you hold on, you appreciate things while they're there, but then you let them go when they're not. And that's how should see your visions, where you're holding it kind of loosely. You know what you want to experience and you have a vision for it, but you allow it to play out in whatever way that it's meant to play out, and you enjoy that experience as it happens, because at the end of the day everything is temporary, and no matter what, that experience is only temporary. Whether it is because it's something like a wedding where it's literally one day, or it's a job that hopefully you'll evolve from. Even if you could, even if it, going back to the wedding experience, where it's just like, even if it's something that you can experience multiple times, if you do reunions every 5 years, it's always going to look, each experience is going to look different. It's never, you're never going to have the same experience twice. So the more that people can remember that, and the more that people can treat their experiences with that type of appreciation, the more you get out of it. So, yeah, if you would like to work one on one with me when it comes to how, typically I work with patterns, people's self concepts, but even if you want to look at how you can move towards a life that is worth experiencing more because it's truer to you, link in the description. Find me, set up a 15-minute intro call just to see if this is right for you, if working with me is right for you. And if not, I want to thank you so much for listening. And I really hope this resonated or that you learned something. And until next time, goodbye.